How many of you guys are too polite to ask about the eye patch? I promise I'm going to cover it for you. But I think we're all here. Is the camera good to go? Okay. Everybody's here. Everyone's comfortable. Okay, so we're good to start then. Let's do this, guys. The Bulletproof freelance career. All right, so yeah, the little bit of feedback, I'm going to bring it back down a little bit. Okay, guys, so LightBox finally happened. Yay! Let's give it up. Yeah. I'm so excited. We've been waiting a year for this to happen, and a lot of us are here because we want this to go really well for us. And I know about when it does not go well. The eye patch might have a little bit to do with that. So what I want to do, I want to tell you guys about a series of very interesting phone calls that I've got over the last year and a half. So I was working for, it was really great. I was working for Paramount Animation, having a great time. You drive down to Hollywood, you go through those palm trees, you go through the front gate. It's been a movie icon since the 1930s. You kind of feel like you made it, you know? And if I sound like I'm bragging, I mean, it took 20 years and 50, 60, 80-hour weeks for 20 years to get to go through those gates. But we were having a lot of fun. They even let me I got to do a pass at a version of their logo that would transition into the show that we were doing for them. But my primary work was color scripting the movie. It's the thing that I love the most, the thing that I try to specialize in. So we're having a great time on the show, trying to figure everything out and figure these scenes out. And so, I did hundreds of these and it went great, thank goodness. But all good things come to an end. And as we're winding down, I have to start looking for the next freelance gig. I am a freelance artist. I work as an independent contractor. Well, thank goodness, got a really great phone call from Real Effects. And they said, hey, Nathan, we're interested in having you help out on our upcoming project. I took a look at it. It looked like a lot of fun project. Signed a work agreement, set up a start date. We were all really excited. And then a couple of days before my start date, I get another interesting phone call. Nathan, we are so sorry. The director has left the project and we just have to put everything on hold. We're not staffing up after all. We have to get out, find another director, go into rewrites, sort this thing out. We are so sorry we cannot bring you on at this time. Well, I said, guys, I've been in this business a long time. I know these things happen. No worries. If I can help you again in the future, just give me a call. And they were really nice. And these things do happen. This is commonplace. Everyone did their job as best they could figure out. They're very nice people, but things happen unexpectedly. So, I've got this unexpected stretch right in front of me. Well, thank goodness, Paramount came through with a callback. And they said, hey, Nathan, we have this new show and we'd love for you to do the kind of work you were doing on the previous show. Are you available? And I said, I'm pretty busy. Let me look through the Rolodex here. I don't know. Give me a little time. But you know the truth. And now they're going to watch this video and know that I was faking it. But I said, we had a great time last time. The new project looked great. It looked like a blast. I said, guys, I'm in. And so they said, okay, give us a little time to sort things out and we'll get you going on this. A couple of weeks go by. Another interesting phone call. Nathan, we are so sorry. The director has left the project. We're putting everything on hold. We're doing rewrites. We're going to go out recruiting, looking for a new director for the project. We can't bring you on at this time. I said, guys, I understand. Thank you for thinking of me. Give me a call back anytime that I can help you out. Okay, so here we are. And I'll tell you what I thought. I thought you do this, you work for decades, you do the 50, 60, 80 hours a week, try and figure out how to do this as best you can, do the best work you know how, try and build up good relationships with your clients. Your client base kind of expands over time. And after those decades of toiling, you'll keep pretty busy as a freelancer. I thought that. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter how good you are. What I just described to you is the norm. What are you going to do in that downtime? And hopefully that downtime only lasts a week or two. What are you going to do, to make up for those periods of time when you did not get paid anything? So I got my plan A, but I got my plan B, C, D, E, and F. I even told my wife, when I was working, trying to figure all this out, these are the different things that I do. And I told my wife, hey, we're golden. If any three of these things evaporated overnight, the other three would keep us afloat. We would be able to pay the bills. We're going to be fine. That's what we all want. So I personally, it's kind of my thing. I love landscape sketching. It's a thing I enjoy doing when no one's telling me what kind of art to do. And if I do happen to have any downtime, man, I'm going to be out there with the sketchbook. Well, can I do anything with this? I mean, I'm not doing big, beautiful gallery paintings. I'm sketching. My whole thing is trying to catch the immediate moment outside before the light changes too much. Well, one thing that has worked out for me personally pretty well, I started teaching in 1999. I was working at DreamWorks, and I was also kind of a life drawing guy. I always have tried to be that. And so I started teaching just one class a week and doing my day job at DreamWorks, and the teaching went pretty well. And some of my former students kind of rose up in studios to positions with a little bit of authority. They invited me to do some teaching at their studios. I got invitations to do workshops here, there at different schools in different cities. This is great, guys. This is the moment that you hope for in your career. I taught life drawing at Disney while I was working full-time for DreamWorks. That was fantastic. And it was, they're real nice. They have the little the little kitchenettes with free snacks in there. And so Disney was literally across the street from DreamWorks, one of their campuses is. And I'd go teach my class after hours, and if Disney didn't have good snacks left over at the end of the day, I would walk across the street to DreamWorks. So these things can pay off, but what we need to talk about is the times that they don't pay off. Okay, so the teaching thing is going well, and I'm getting invites to do workshops, doing a little bit of traveling. That's become a bit of a thing for me. It's been fantastic. And so you go on a trip, and if you get an invite to go, for instance, I got to go to Stockholm and work with the studio there and do some workshops as well. And so you got to take an extra day or two or three, whatever you can squeeze out of your schedule, see the sights. And of course, a person like me is going to break out the watercolors, do some painting. If you're in Berlin, you got to do the Berlin Cathedral, Mexico. Here, taking some photos in Israel, and in this case, you got to shoot good reference. If you can, come back to your studio, do some painting there. If you end up with a little downtime, squeeze in a little extra time. And here's something from some workshops in Italy as well. Okay, so something that I personally really, really want to do but have a hard time doing, I want to sell original artwork. I would like to have a gallery show. It takes hundreds of hours to put together a gallery show, but I've been doing the groundwork, as it turns out. And by the way, we all have our own thing. I'm talking about one of my things, which is landscape painting. I want you, whatever your thing is, I want you to plug it into what I'm talking about here, because there's a little bit of a circle building up where one opportunity leads to another opportunity. Okay, so I don't have the hundreds of hours to put together a gallery show, even with a little downtime, but I've been doing all these paintings, on these workshop trips. So that one actually happened, even though I didn't have time for it. So another thing I would love to do, my classes, I would love to get those classes, get them online, and have online versions of those. It takes hundreds of hours to properly put together an online class. Who has the time? But all this time I've been painting, I've been chronicling, I've been videoing the process, I've been taking step-by-step photos. I have the material for a class. I've been doing it already. So put together the online class. And then I want to do a book, really want to do a book. Oh my gosh, guys, some of you have done books. I know a few of you. in the audience, and some of you have done wonderful books. How much time does it take to properly put a book together? Yikes, hundreds of hours. So I really want to do a book, but I don't have hundreds of hours. I've already put all the material together in my online class. I can take that material and translate it into a book. And now I have I have workshops. I have original artwork. I have gallery shows. I have online classes, and I have a few books out there. And all of these things generate a little bit of income stream while I sleep. And that has been the thing that's made up the difference for those inevitable downtimes that occur. I don't just have a plan A and I don't have a plan B, just either, because I know that plan C, D, E, maybe even F, and I'm going to say yes, definitely F, you'll see, is a necessity if you want to have a freelance career that's approaching something that's bulletproof. The great call, the great phone call, the one where, Nathan, we'd love to have you come on board, waited by the phone, waited for that call, the director left. The director did not leave the project. Guess who left the project? Okay. So, in a minute, it's not going to sound like a laughing matter, but it will be, and you're welcome to laugh, absolutely. Okay, so I'm working along. You know the hours that we all put in? I start getting horrific shooting pains up my arms. It's common in our industry, the repetitive motion and everything. The doctor said, you got to take a couple of weeks off work. If you don't, it's going to be more than a couple of weeks that you'll have to take off work in the long run. So I did that. It did not get better. It got worse. Those shooting pains went up my arms, down into my hands, down my legs, into my feet, and then my face started to turn numb. That is not right. So the doctor said, we got to get you into the neurologist, like right now. And I went to the neurologist, and the neurologist said, so, okay, this is serious, but the things that tend to cause these symptoms don't tend to kill you like right away. So we're going to need to go through a series of tests. It could take several weeks to figure out what's really going on with you. So I'm the one who had to make the phone call. First, I was like, is the director still there? I had to marvel, I am so sorry. I have to leave the project. I literally cannot work. They were so nice, Nathan, take care of yourself, keep in touch, we'll check in with you and hope you're doing well, do what you need to do. So that's exactly what I did. So here I am, having done all of the groundwork over 2 decades, developing my plan A through F to try and be a bulletproof freelancer. And now I am down to 2. Those are the only 2 things that I can do on my list in that condition while we're trying to figure out what it is that's going on with me. But I said, I was so proud of myself. I still got this. I'm teaching the online classes. We have a waiting list of students. I can just bring on that waiting list for a full term. I'm physically capable of teaching online, from the comfort of my home studio. I am still good. It worked. My plan worked. But then my voice went out. Lost my voice. It went down to a hoarse whisper. And now, did you just see plan B disappear, the teaching? I can't teach. I am all the way down to plan F. So I did what I always do in a tight situation. I lied to myself, and I strongly recommend it. Don't lie. Don't lie to other people unless your dress looks good. But lie to yourself whenever you need it. I said to myself, you know what? You've been working so hard all these years. This is the moment that you have been training for all your life. You are not down. You're going to prove it. You are going to finish that book. And that's what I decided to do with this downtime. So, thing of pure beauty. I'm so sad those things went away. I own 3 of them so that I can get another decade out of classic iPod. I was in bad shape, guys, but every morning when I woke up, what I did, I put on my headphones, and there's this song I really love. Like, it's just, you guys would all hate it, absolutely hate it, but whenever I need to pump up with energy, there's this song. It's about a gladiator striding into the arena, facing peril, probably going to die, but man, he's striding in, it doesn't matter. I'd listen to this loud song to try and get a little energy up. And I'd go to my studio, all pumped up as much as I was physically able to do the little bit that I could do on that book. And I'll tell you, here's what it looked like, So as a freelancer, I'm really lucky to have a separate building off of my backyard as my studio space. So my commute, is 10 steps from my house. And I love it. I'm a freelancer now. When I get invitations to go in-house, I say, I'm sorry, I work from my home studio. So I'd listen to that song and drag myself out of bed, and shuffle to the studio. But in my mind, and this is where the lying to yourself comes in, I mean, guys, the crowds were cheering. I was just, man, in my mind, it was this, but I was this. So let's give it up. Come on, let's hear it. Gladiator. I'm going to do whatever it takes to finish this book. So I started, I couldn't do the repetitive motion of drawing and painting, but I did. I had my materials. I had my materials from my online class and stuff I'd been putting together. I had started the book. And so I can put together the page layouts. So I can shuffle images around and page by page, putting those out, putting some demos, trying to get the demos together to make sense. And even though I can't talk, and I tried to do voice capture on the computer, just whispering in a microphone, trying to do voice capture. I can't type. I cannot type. The computer couldn't understand a single word I was saying. My phone, I could whisper into my phone and it understood me beautifully. I wrote my entire book dictating, whispering into my phone, chapter by chapter, and then emailing it to myself and plugging it in to the book layout that we were using. So here we are. So another phone call. Nathan, I am so sorry, but you need to come in to the emergency room right now. I'd had an MRI done. It was at that stage in the tests. I said, okay, is there an appointment time? Get in your car and drive down right now. I went down. I met with a neurosurgeon, and he said, Mr. Fowkes, we need to have a very serious conversation. In the MRI, they had found a mass growing at the top of my spinal column, pushing in there, and that's what was causing all of this body stuff that was going on. And he said, I am surprised to see you up and walking. I have an opening on Thursday. We need to take that thing out now. Well, my wife and I, we quickly consulted a couple of specialists, as this guy was a specialist, because, some guy says he has to cut the back of your neck and head, cut the back of your neck open. Well, I want someone else to confirm that. And so the 2 other people that we showed the MRI results to, their response was, Mr. Fowkes, you need to have that taken out right now. So I took the appointment. We had it taken out. And I literally, and you guys are thinking I'm dramatizing for the talk. I promise this is not the line. The only line is to myself. I dictated the last chapter of the book sitting in my hospital bed on the way into my surgery, sent it to the publisher. I was done. I finished the book, Gladiator. That's right. Oh my God. that's it. We're really proud of the book, except for that last chapter. That last chapter makes absolutely no sense. Don't skip that chapter. Everything else is fantastic. You're gonna love it. Okay, so drawing. This is relevant because I went into the surgery. I was in for longer than 12 hours. When it was over, the doctor came out and met with my wife, and he said, I have a policy of being completely honest with my patients and their families. That's not how you want the conversation to start, right? Okay, he said, we successfully removed the mass, and you need to prepare yourself for the likelihood that your husband will have paralysis on his right-hand side based on how the surgery went. And there's a likelihood that he'll have a loss of fine motor skills. Fine motor skills as in drawing. And she said, because this is what she cared most about, what about the mass? You know, were you able to figure out what it is? Miss Fowkes, will you please have a seat? Don't worry, guys. Don't worry. It's going to sound like you need to worry, but we're going to the punchline. He said, now the biopsy we did is rushed and it's cursory. We're doing a full biopsy that will take 2 or 3 weeks. We do an initial biopsy to have an understanding of what it is that we're dealing with. However, the preliminary biopsy shows malignancy. That means cancer. And she said, having had this surgery, what's the prognosis? And he said, it will grow back. And the average lifespan for someone with this condition is 3 years. Guys, you guys are stuck with me for the next 30 years. I am not going anywhere. I'm going to be here next year. I'm going to be begging. I'm going to come out. You're going to be in other lines. We heard. Thank you. You're going to be saying, oh, we talked to Nathan last year, or we're doing a different thing. I can be out. No, come on over. My class is kind of empty. There's room. You don't have to wait in line. This is not an end-of-life talk. That's not what actually ended up happening. So if you guys need one of those, moving end-of-life talks, I did my best, and now I'm passing the baton on to you to do your best. We're going to meet back here in 2050, and if you need the end-of-life talk, I'll give it to you in the year 2050. So here's what happened from that point forward. We waited for the final results. But I have to tell you, regarding drawing, when I woke up from the surgery, knowing the possible complications of the surgery ahead of time, when I came to, you'd think I'd honey, I talked to my wife, honey, I love you. I'm so embarrassed that I didn't do that. I lifted my arm up, laying in my hospital bed, and I started going like this. And my wife said, honey, what are you doing? As in, oh my gosh, she's lost it. I said, no, I'm good. I'm drawing. I'm making sure my hand can do the motions of drawing. I was good. I had it. I could feel there was zero loss of motor control, fine motor control. So I hope you think this was passably good back then. It's even better, and it's getting better every day. Thank you. So I had zero paralysis. I had zero loss of motor control. The movements that every kid learned how to do in the 1980s. All of those. Guys, I'm not just 100%. I'm better than 100%. The eye patch, the only complication I had from all of this was because, they're working back there on your spinal column. It left me with a little bit of double vision. So, I can see you guys just fine. There were 200 of you, and now there's, 400 when I lift up the patch. But that's good too. It's slowly coming back together over time. It's going to be back to 100%. They say it could even take a year as it gradually finds itself again. but I get to pretend to be, Nick Fury or pirate. I am no Samuel L. Jackson, but, remember the whole lying to yourself thing? That's where I'm going. You're like, oh, how embarrassing. I have to wear an eye patch. In my mind, I'm, Nick Fury, whoever, whatever cool guy, Snake Plissken I showed in the slide before that. Okay. So we wait the weeks for the final biopsy to come back. And you already know the answer to this by now. I'm talking about how fine I am. It takes 3 weeks. I get a phone call, another phone call. This one, those late at night phone calls. Phone call at 10:30, and it was a neurosurgeon. And he said, Mr. Fowkes, I promised that I would call you as soon as we got the results in. They literally just came into my inbox, and I have to tell you, I am very happy for you. And I said, my hand was shaking. I mean, like, this is literally life or death. Like, you're going to die in 3 years or you're good. And my hand was shaking. Oh, yikes. And my mom was right there. And yeah. So I said, he said, I'm happy for you. I said, well, that sounds promising. He said, the mass was a rare form that does look like a malignancy, but when you look closer, it's a rare benign form. Benign, no cancer. It's gone. And I said, well, okay, what follow-up? Do I need, radiation? No further treatments. You are done. Wear that eye patch. I won't do it in front of you guys, but because it was weird. But you imagine the emotions that you're feeling at a moment like that. When I hung up the phone, I started laughing hysterically, like scary, like Vincent Price laughter, just like, I'm alive. And it's been the recovery. It was a brutal recovery, the going through this process. The recovery was brutal. I was in bed for a long time, and then I had to kind of get my body back working again, and that took quite a while. I actually had to use a walker at first until my body kind of reset itself and got its strength back. I really am. I'm completely back to 100%. But the point I've got to make with all of this happened to me. Something really bad will happen to most of you guys sometime during your career. To you, to somebody close to you, those bullets they hit you hard, they knock you down, and they knock you out. While I laid there in bed for the first couple of days after the surgery, helpless, I couldn't do anything. Instead of being at the mercy of everybody else, instead of being at the mercy of the charity of others, those projects that I just described to you that were out there, I'd been working so hard to get those projects out there. They would sell on their own, the books, the online classes, self-study, and so forth. Those things were out there generating income while I laid helpless. And it was enough money to pay the bills. And I did not have to be a burden on my family or anyone. I was still paying the bills as a freelance artist, laying in bed, helpless. And that is what I mean by a bulletproof freelance career. That's the goal. Okay, so how are we doing for time? We're doing good. We go till 3:30. We're doing great. Okay, and I hope we have a little time at the end for Q&As if you guys would like. But I went to college, great education, but inevitably there is so much more to learn. And so I looked at what the people I admired were capable of doing. I knew I had so far to go. So this is my desk back in the 90s. And you can see I'm doing study, desperate to figure these things out, desperate to improve, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. I mean, until the sun goes out. I mean, I know some of you, and I know what your work is. And you frighten me, frankly. I'm still doing this. I got to keep at the top of my game. Even in full health, I've got to continue to fight to keep at the top of my game. And so it was really all of this stuff that led to me developing the expertise that I was interested in, because I always wanted to color script for feature animation movies. That was my goal. And that's what ultimately led to my particular specialty. So I did work at DreamWorks. I did work at DreamWorks Animation. We did The Prince of Egypt. We did How to Train Your Dragon. I worked on several of the Shrek projects. And of course, the never to be forgotten, The Pig Who Cried Werewolf. Now, you guys are going to love it. It's a little Netflix short. Watch it at Halloween. Watch it with your kids. You'll get a kick out of it. But got another phone call, guys. It's an endless stream of phone calls in your freelance career. My wife called me from the hospital. Don't worry. It was a scheduled appointment, checking up on her pregnancy. And I said, hey, babe, everything going okay? Yeah, it's going great. Oh, great. I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, it's going doubly great. Really? Wow. So you're doing good? Yeah, doubly good. We're having twins. So guys, I know, every parent thinks that their own kids are the most special out of all the kids. It just turns out that in my case, it actually is true. So, oh my gosh, these little guys, I cannot say no to these little guys. I had to quit. I was putting in the long hours, the overtime down at the studio, fighting through traffic to get home, sometimes not making it home in time for dinner. Couldn't do it anymore. Had to quit DreamWorks. 15 fantastic years. I would have loved to have stayed, but I had to make that break, and I had to start working from home and figure out how to do that. I got a great call from Blue Sky, and they were interested in having a freelancer fill in for about a year while their crew was working on the Ice Age movies. And so their crew was going to cycle off of the Ice Age movies, but in the meantime, we were developing a couple of their projects. So I got to work on Rio 2. Had a great time on that show. We worked on Ferdinand the Bull, and so I got to do some development for that show. We had a blast, but of course, where's the next project going to be? And so I was down at Comic-Con that year while we were wrapping up with Blue Sky Studios. And a handsome young man approached me and said he was putting together an online program called Schoolism, and his name was Bobby Chu. And I said, not a chance. I didn't know who he was. I didn't know he was, from Canada. But I looked at what he was doing, and I thought a lot about it during the next year. Met him again at Comic-Con. And he had started this going, and the way they were approaching it looked fantastic. And the idea of teaching out of my home studio sounded even more fantastic. So we did it. And this expertise that I was hoping to have developed over all of these decades, that's what we brought to Schoolism. So it was my opportunity, you toil for the decade or two or whatever it is, and then you use that. And so the things that I've tried to develop a specialty in, and of course there's the landscape sketching, love environment design, and we're very proud to announce I'm going to be teaching drawing starting this coming January, January 2020 on Schoolism. So I'll be teaching it live, and shortly after, it'll become available for a self-study. And this little meeting at Comic-Con, and for those of you out there, and look straight at the camera, because out in the big bad world that treats us freelancers so harshly, these things are online, and we are here at LightBox Expo. And all of this was created by Bobby Chu, that very same humble guy that I met way back when at San Diego Comic-Con. Since then, him and his studio have won Annie Awards, they've won Emmy Awards. It's been an amazing collaboration to be a part of it. Okay, so we've got to work with another studio, got to find the next gig. And I'm just going to see how we're doing for time. We're great. Okay, it's a little after 3 o'clock. So we have time, and we need time, because if you think that a brush with death was bad, wait till you hear this one. Okay, so a great opportunity came up. I got another call, looked great. The director was on the project. And the studio, well-known studio, was creating an animated project. They were bringing on, I was looking at who they were bringing on really amazing people. The project looked great. I was invited to be a part of it. And so I did, worked away on it. We had a great time until, of course, the phone call. It was the production designer. First thing I said was, the director is still on the project. But I actually didn't ask that because I knew immediately something was wrong. Her voice was shaking. And she said, Nathan, stop working. Don't do any more work. We came into the studio. So I'm freelancing here on the West Coast, Los Angeles. They're over on the East Coast. And she called me and she said, don't do any more work. We came in this morning. The studio doors, they were locked up. The studio, they're telling us, is declaring Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and it is over. And, we talked for a minute, and, she was sorry, I was sorry, but these things happen in a freelance career. And the way the invoicing happens and the way the payment, the payment lags beyond the invoice, the way the cycles just happen to hit, I wasn't paid for the last month. I was never paid, never saw a penny of that money for the last month. If you think that's the bad thing, that's normal. You got to expect that. You got to prepare for that. It happens more often. Some of you know it happens more often than we want to believe. No, here was the thing. So in the aftermath of this bankruptcy, you get all kinds of weird mailers, fly-by-night companies, people, sending you all kinds of crazy stuff, scam stuff regarding a bankruptcy. And there was even this one thing I got. Somebody was claiming that I had to pay back the money I had actually earned on the show, as if it wasn't bad enough. I wasn't paid for that last month. And, as if I'm going to fall for that scam. And so I ignored that stuff and just, move it on, look for the next gig, did my freelance thing. But these mailers kept showing up. And one showed up, and it was that same thing about you have to pay back the money that you did earn on the project. That's nuts. There's no such thing, of course. But I got one, same group, same law firm, and it actually had like a court docket attached to it that looked official. I thought, well, they'd use those official, they're always scammers. They're trying to make their letters look like an official document, so you get scared. But this, yikes. So I called a friend of the family who's a lawyer, and he doesn't do that kind of law, but didn't know where to start. I called up him and he said, yeah, that's not my specialty, but on my system, I do have access to the court system. If you have a court docket number there, I can just type it in and see what it is. And so I gave him the number, he typed it in, and there was that intake of breath that you don't want to hear. And he said, Mr. Fowkes, I am very sorry. You are being sued for $25,000 in the court of Delaware. And I said, whoa, no, this is a mistake. I mean, this was an above board company. Everything was above board. I invoiced properly. I'm proper, all my freelance paperwork, registry, everything in order. I paid all my taxes. I did absolutely everything right. I don't mess around with that stuff. I got too much at stake, those twins, the whole thing. I told him everything was completely above board. This is not possible. And he said, no one is suggesting that you did anything wrong. Let me explain what this is. This is called a preference action. When a company goes bankrupt, if there are independent contractors who are not paid, they can put in a claim that other people were paid and they weren't. And there's a law in place to deal with that, a law with good intentions. And what the law says is they can take back a certain amount of your earnings, legitimate earnings, proper earnings. You did everything right. No one doubts it. No one's saying otherwise. They can take your earned money back as if that money even exists anymore. They can take it back, put it into a fund, and then redistribute it among all the parties, the independent contractors that were working for that company. And this law firm who was handling this distribution was demanding that I pay back $25,000 with the promise that, when it's redistributed, there might be something. How much of that money do you think I would have seen back? That $25,000. And they know that. Now, this is strictly my opinion. I have no legal expertise. Don't go, anything I talk about here, if you need to check with a professional, I'm not. Check with a professional. If I tell you, use white gouache like this, I am a professional. If I tell you legally something or other, no, go check with a professional. But my opinion, and this is what my experience was, it's a real law and it had good intentions to make sure some people were paid, some people weren't. We got to make sure everyone got something. They legally forced that money back. Law firms use it. They use it as a shakedown. They know that you don't want to pay that money. They know that you probably don't have that money available. And so they use it to negotiate down to a settlement instead of actually doing the redistribution. I had to find a law firm that dealt with this kind of thing. On the phone, talking to all kinds of lawyers. I actually got, funny thing. I found a lawyer at a law firm who had an expertise to help me. And he said, I can help you with that. Yeah, I know, and he was legit. And then I get a phone call from him a week later, 2 weeks later. Mr. Fowkes, I am so sorry. It turns out that our law firm is representing the other side of this issue. I cannot represent you. And he actually he said, don't tell him. Here's a law firm that specializes in that. I know them. I think they're really good. I called them. They sounded great. They sounded like they knew what they were doing. Do you know how much I had to pay these people to represent me? The law firm went in and fought for me, negotiated. I had to pay the law firm who represented me, and then I had to pay a small settlement instead of paying back the $25,000. I had to pay several $1,000s just to deal with this issue because I had done everything right. I had worked hard. I'd done the best work. I did my business practices properly. And for the privilege of having that, not only did I not get paid for a month, I had to pay several $1,000s to deal with this issue. It's going to happen to you. It will happen to you at some point during your career. And I'm not that, I'm not going to tell you how to spend your money. It's kind of an awkward thing. But I will tell you this, I drive a Toyota instead of a Tesla. And there's a reason for that. I want to have a freelance war chest. Remember, my goal is to be bulletproof. My wife and I have had some very not hard, she's with me. We're both together on this about how we are going to not spend our money so that we have a war chest. Oh, you're going to say I have to pay you $25,000 back? I'm coming back at you and I'm going to hit you hard as you are hitting me. I've got the war chest to do it. If you don't do that, if you don't find a way, just year by year, month by month, this will hit you and you'll be down and you'll have to go crawling back in-house somewhere until you can build yourself back up to become a freelancer again. It's simply the hard reality of the business. Okay, so we're at 3:10. We're doing, you guys, can you do one more? Can you do one more studio here? And I want to go, because this one's a positive one. This one is kind of a yay, victory for the freelancers one. So I'll roll through this one with you, and then I think we'll have a little time for a little bit of Q&A. Okay, so get another phone call, really good phone call. Big animation company. Big animation company, we all know who they are. And they say, Nathan, the director left the project. But the director had already left the project. That happened to somebody else this time, not me. We have a new director on this project that we're doing, and we need the show to be color scripted. Even though we just went through this situation, going into rewrites, finding a new director for the project, we still have to have the same release date. And so we're hoping you have availability to come in, color script the show, and we're going to meet this release date. And I said, well, guys, I'm so sorry. I'm a freelancer. I've made the decision that I work as an independent contractor out of my home studio. And so I'm very sorry, but I stick to that. And they said, could you come in, twice a week for meetings, for check-ins? No problem. I could absolutely come in a couple times a week. And they said, we can work with you on this. You come in for some meetings, do your work at home. We'll set up a system, back and forth, no problem. And, we'll get you our little, our employee, our benefits package and make sure you get some benefits for coming in and doing this. I had another offer. It was a little bit of a tough decision. A video game company had offered for me to freelance full-time for them. And it just sounded like an interest, to break away from animation, do some video game work, a really good company. And so I had that in-house option. I could stand tall and say, no, I'm freelancing. There's offers there. And so this is the deal that I can offer you to the big animation company. So they said, great, we'll work it all out. And so I showed up on the first day. Of course, I drove in for the first day to get into the project. And I met with the human resources person. And she said, hey, great to have you. Thank you for being here. And we've put together an office space for you over here. And I said, I don't think I'll need it because I'm only coming in for meetings. I'm doing my work from home. And she looked at me and she said, no, we don't do that. And I said, well, no, obviously there's been a little misunderstanding. I worked it out with the recruiter, and so I'm going to be working from my home studio. And she said, no, we don't do that here at Big Animation Studio. I mean, if you get to do that, then every other artist will say, well, why can't I work? I live over down the street. Why can't I work from my home studio? And so I said, well, this was the agreement that I had made, and I have it on paper from the recruiter. And she said, no, we simply cannot do this. It's just there was some kind of, the right hand didn't know what the left hand was doing. The recruiter did not have the authority to make that offer to you. We simply do not do that at Big Animation Studio. Well, I had passed. I'd called up the video game company and I did I'm so sorry. Looks like I'm not going to be available. And so that option, that video game company option was gone. And here I am. Well, the thing that you guys are working for and that I've been working for my whole career, again, not something I could do at the beginning of my career or the middle of my career, but, the decades of doing your very best to develop a specialty. I felt like I was in a position to say, you may not do it, but it is what I do. And so I will work on the project from my home studio if you can arrange it. Otherwise, I am not available, period. Got a phone call. Mr. Fowkes, you know what? Looks like we can kind of wrangle things around. We can kind of shuffle. And they're a great company. They're just, big companies. They have their process. They have to do things a certain way. And in a big company, the left hand really doesn't know what the right hand is doing sometimes. It's just all of these things that we're going through. It's the nature of business because it's the nature of people. And so I had a fantastic experience on that project. They even paid me, the benefits that they had offered. I had on paper that they were offering benefits, and now I'm working from home as an independent contractor. They paid me the cash value of those benefits because it was on paper that they had offered it. So in the end, even though that was very uncomfortable and difficult, in the end, they were very fair. They were happy. I was happy. I had the most fun on that project since the Prince of Egypt. So that's the opportunity that we're hoping for in our freelance career. But to make it happen, we've got the plan A, B, C, D, E, and F. And those projects, once or twice, hopefully not more, in your career, will all go away. All of these options that you've been working so hard for. In your career, you will have a bullet or two hit you so hard, it'll knock you down, it'll knock you out. But if you have that plan F, if you've gone that far, if this is your bulletproof vest, those are your last fibers, and that bullet goes all the way through, but those last fibers hold. That plan F keeps you afloat. And it happens if you do that day by day, week by week, year by year, little bit of extra practice, little bit of extra effort on a daily basis so that you have that expertise and you can walk in, and if you need to, you can walk out. So thank you guys so much for being with me here for Bulletproof Freelance Career. LightBox. All right. Okay, so let's see, I'm looking at the time here. We have about 10 minutes. We can do a little Q&A if you guys would like. So I don't know if there are questions, but it looks like there's some hands. I'll just call on people. Go ahead over there.
You said something about, you said you have to have a war chest.
Yes.
If you could say really quickly where we should start building that from zero.
I'm going to tell you a really short story to answer that question, because it takes some real sacrifice to do that, right? So I remember a time I was in high school, and my dad came home from work, and he gathered all of us together, all my brothers and sisters. I have 7 brothers and sisters, guys, big family. And my dad got all of us together, and he said, "Kids, I just came back from the bank. I put the last payment on this house now, and we own it free and clear." And he said, "And now I do not owe a penny to anyone. No credit card debt, no car payments. I save up until I can pay cash for cars. I do not buy anything unless I have the money to pay for it. And now I do not owe a penny or a payment of any kind to anybody." Well, that really stuck with me. That was like ultra power. My dad was bulletproof. This is a college teacher, and my wife, my mom, stay-at-home mom with the kids. And so my mom wasn't working, wasn't earning an income. This is a college teacher with 8 kids living like this. And I don't remember lacking for anything when I was a kid. Maybe those secret late night meetings he was having. I don't know. I've always wondered about that. But no, my mom and dad were ultra frugal, and they never, ever, without exception, bought anything unless they had the cash to buy it. No payments, pay no interest. When my wife and I got married, she was raised the same kind of way. Her dad, ultra frugal. And so we agreed this is how we were going to live. If you can buy the Tesla, great. If you have cash, but that cash probably needs to be your war chest. So, it's saving money, just week after week, day after day, that money that you wanted to spend. Sacrifice, sacrifice is giving up something good, hoping to gain something even better. You have that money available, and man, I would look good in a Tesla, guys. I've been looking at those cars are so beautiful. But that war chest, next time it will happen to me again. And I'll be able to stand up and say, no, if I have to hide, I'm not a legal guy. I'm not a vindictive guy. I don't want to ever in my life talk to a lawyer again. If someone does something bad to me, I'd rather go in the other room and hide and just let it go away. But if it rose to that kind of a level when they come at you like that, I'm ready. So I hope that answers that's a very long answer to your question. Go ahead.
So I'm a recent grad from college,
Yeah.
So many times to do freelancing. So freelancing, when you start freelancing, how do you start with a payment plan and also consulting too? And do you use like your own like strict timesheet kind of thing? I'm still confused about that.
Sure. I'm the kind of person, I'm very narrow focused. And I have friends who work on several projects at the same time. And there are some programs out there that they actually use to plug in their hours on these different projects. And that's important to do. You got to be very upfront with your client and about how many hours you put into their project. But I'm strictly, I can't juggle that. So it does happen. You have a project wrapping up and you line up another project as best you can. They might overlap, and I've had that happen. And that's brutal. That's a brutal time period because it's 2 full-time jobs that maybe I have to do for 2 weeks until the one ends. Maybe the one demands some extra overtime. They say, hey, we got to go another week on this. And I was all lined up to go on to something else. It's difficult. So I actually try and avoid doing the duo thing, but there are great programs out there that can track that. And you can just freelance. And as long as you declare your earnings, and if you ever get audited, they say, we see these payments going into your bank account, that you didn't pay taxes. They figure it out. You don't mess with that. I have since, when I first started and was going for a while, some people said to me, some pros said, have you incorporated? Incorporated as a business. And I said, I'm just freelancing. They're like, the taxes that you're paying without incorporating, you could save a lot of money. So I looked into it. I didn't know where to start. I found somebody to help me set up an incorporation. And it does it because the work that you do is your business, and that's the business's money. And if something happens and someone comes after your business's money, like this weird thing I talked about, that's not you, that's the business. And so they can't take your house, that kind of a thing. And so I incorporated, and you get an accountant who knows how to deal with these things, and you can work out your taxes favorably, between your personal and your business. So again, hire an expert, don't do anything because I said, but me and the pros say, I am Nathan Fowkes, Inc. That's my business. And it is better having incorporated. Go talk to a pro about it to make sure that that's right for you and that you do it properly. It's a great question. Okay, and we're good, little time. Yeah, go ahead.
I just started doing some freelance and had to deal with writing a contract.
Yeah. Yikes. Ouch.
Yeah. How do you go about writing contracts? Do you usually write a contract or usually get contracts from?
I usually get the contracts from, if it's a studio. And I've been very lucky in the sense that, I worked for DreamWorks all those years and dealt with contracts. And you have to renew your contract every year or 2 or 3, whatever it is. And so I was experienced in dealing with contracts. And here in LA, there's the animation union. And if you're at Disney, DreamWorks, Sony, and a lot of the smaller places as well, you're automatically in the union, you pay union dues. But they are a resource, and you can call them, hey, there's something in this contract that it doesn't look good, or I don't understand it. And they actually have lawyers on retainer that actually will help you with that kind of a thing. So I have had that benefit. But yeah, studio sends a contract over, and I look it over and make sure there's nothing weird or unexpected in it. And really, a contract is for when things go badly. You do something bad or they do something bad. It doesn't usually happen. Just all the weird things in your contract are to cover them and hopefully you in worst case scenarios, kind of a thing. So if you have, you're signing a 3-year deal and a lot of money, you got to have somebody look at that. Yeah, great question. Okay, yeah, go ahead and towards the back.
So you want to get really good at something, so you want to specialize in one hand, and then on the other hand, you want to juggle all these goals and have time to do. How do you not spread yourself thin?
Yeah, so the circle that I was talking about is, I'll fall back on that. because I talk about this horrible downtime. I actually try to take, these projects are pretty hard, pretty grueling, lots of hours. I try and always take a couple weeks off after every project because, oh my gosh, you're killing yourself. And even though you're working from home, you start to feel like you're not seeing your family, even though you can just walk in and see them for 15 minutes. And so that circle during the downtime and finding 20 minutes a day to do your own thing. An hour a day is better, but if you can't do an hour a day, 20 minutes a day to work on your book, your thing, your landscape sketching. At lunch, every day at lunch, get out and do your sketch or lay out your book, do a couple of pages layout on your book. That's the way I've always done this. And even taken a couple more than 2 weeks after a project, hoping to get a little bit ahead on the book project. Because you are in danger of spreading yourself pretty thin. But, like I say, day after day, year after year, of putting these skill sets together and these projects out there, you do hit a point where they amount to something. And that's the point where your freelance career starts to blossom, hopefully without too much burnout along the way. So, you might have to be a 60-hour-a-week worker, like I often am. But I love this business. I love working out of my home studio. I love animation. Oh my gosh, being an animation artist and starting in the 90s during that period, I count my lucky stars every day. So with that, it's time, guys. So thanks again. Thanks for being with me. And good luck to you. All right, cheers.